The night was cold and merciless, rain hammering the dented tin roof of the worn-down house on Elmwood Street as if trying to break through, while Daniel Hale, a weary 35-year-old single father, sat silently at his small wooden table, watching his 8-year-old daughter Lila doze off mid-sentence over her half-finished homework. It had been another long day of overtime shifts at the mechanic shop, and exhaustion clung to the air like a fog, until suddenly, sharply, there came 3 loud knocks *** on the front door. Daniel's head jerked up. Nobody knocked at this hour. It was 12:03 a.m., the street outside was empty as far as he knew, one of those forgotten parts of town where even trouble didn't bother visiting. Instinct on high alert, he gently moved Lila's head to rest on the couch, grabbed his old baseball bat from beside the shoe rack, and approached the door with the cautious steps of a man who had seen enough of the world not to trust it. The knocks came again, softer this time, not desperate, not violent. Frightened, Daniel slowly turned the lock and opened the door barely an inch, just enough to see her. A little girl, maybe 10 years old. Soaking wet, shivering violently, strands of brown hair stuck to her face, clutching an old stuffed bear to her chest like it was the only thing tethering her to existence. Her lips trembled as she whispered, barely audible over the rain, Please, don't send me away." Daniel hesitated for only a heartbeat before instinct overrode caution. "Come inside," he murmured, pushing the door wider and ushering her in. Warm air wrapped around her as she stepped inside, though her teeth still chattered uncontrollably. Lila stirred awake on the couch and blinked in confusion. "Daddy, who is she?" Daniel knelt beside the mysterious girl and gently wrapped her in an old blanket. "What's your name, sweetheart?" She stared at the floor before answering, voice fragile, ***S Sophie, ***I. I can't find my dad." Daniel noticed the raw fear in her eyes, one that didn't come from just being lost in the rain. There was something darker hidden behind it. He made her a warm cup of cocoa while dialing the police's non-emergency line, recounting her arrival, but the officer on the other end seemed almost indifferent, stating no missing child matching her description had been reported. That only made the situation more unsettling. Daniel hung up, heart heavy with a feeling he couldn't explain. "You can stay here tonight," he said softly. Sophie nodded, clinging to the blanket like a shield. As he tucked her into the living room couch, Lila whispered with wide eyes, "Daddy, what if someone bad is looking for her?" Daniel glanced out the fogged window, scanning the empty street. He had no answer, only an uneasy certainty that this night had just changed everything. Outside, beneath the shadows, an unseen figure watched silently from the darkness. Morning arrived quietly, the rain gone but the air still damp with the remnants of the storm, as the soft golden light of sunrise slipped through the crooked blinds of Daniel's living room, gently illuminating Sophie curled up on the couch, her small fingers still tightly gripping her stuffed bear as if it were the last piece of safety in her world. Daniel stood by the kitchen counter, brewing cheap coffee as Lila hummed gently while placing 2 overly burnt pancakes on plates, proud of having made breakfast for everyone, a smile finally appearing on Sophie's lips when she sat at the table and saw Lila push her plate toward her, saying, "You can have mine. I already ate." But before that moment of fragile peace could settle, a deep rumble outside froze the air. Daniel's instincts flared, because the sound did not belong in this neighborhood of old Hondas and rusted pickup trucks. He walked to the window, and his heartbeat stopped. A black SUV, gleaming. Tinted windows. The kind of vehicle that belonged to people who didn't ask questions, they gave orders, slowly, deliberately, the SUV rolled to a stop in front of his house. The engine cut. Silence fell like a blade. Lila tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered. He said nothing, just motioned her to stay back as there came a single knock on the door. Not frantic. Not panicked. Calculated, Daniel opened it only partially, and found 2 men in dark suits standing there, far too polished, far too cold for this street. "Good morning," the taller one said with an unnerving smile. "We're looking for a girl. About yay high." He gestured her exact height. Brown hair. Green eyes. Name Sophie. Daniel's pulse thudded in his ears, but he kept his face unreadable. Who are you? The man's smile didn't move, but his eyes hardened. Security detail. Her father is very worried. She went missing last night. Behind Daniel, Sophie stood frozen halfway down the hall. The moment the taller man's voice reached her, she flinched, not like someone who was relieved to be found, like someone who had just been hunted. That was enough. Daniel didn't move. Didn't blink. She's safe. And she's not leaving until I speak to her father directly. The second man stepped forward. Sir, we strongly advise against making this complicated. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then I'd strongly advise you to get off my porch. The taller man's smile finally cracked. His voice turned deadly calm. You're making a mistake, Mr. Hale. They turned and walked back to the SUV, but Daniel could feel it. This wasn't over. He shut the door immediately and locked it. When he turned, Sophie was shaking uncontrollably. His voice softened. Sophie, tell me the truth. Who are those men? Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, voice breaking, they work for my dad, but they're not here to protect me. They're here to take me back. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, Sophie's trembling words echoing like thunder in his mind, they're not here to protect me. They're here to take me back, the fear in her voice was unlike anything a child should ever know, and that alone told him more than any police report or ID card ever could. He guided Sophie gently to the couch, Lila hovering protectively beside her, eyes wide with worry. Sophie, Daniel said quietly, crouching down to meet her eye level, I need you to tell me everything, not just for you, but for Lila's safety too. Sophie hesitated, clutching her bear like it could somehow speak for her. For a long second, she said nothing. Then, almost as if a dam broke, the words began to spill. Her voice was fragile, but steady. She told him about the giant mansion she lived in. The guards. The security fences. The way everything looked perfect, but felt like a prison the moment her mother died. She spoke of her father, a powerful businessman known to the world as polished and generous, but behind closed doors, a man shattered by grief and drowning in obsession and paranoia. He stopped letting me go to school, she said, staring into nothing. Stopped letting me see people. He said, the world is evil. That everyone was after me. He would scream and break things whenever I touched the door. Daniel felt his blood turn cold. That wasn't protection. That was captivity. Lila reached out and gently held Sophie's hand. Sophie swallowed hard before continuing. Last night, he was yelling again. I heard him say he would send guards to lock things down permanently. I didn't know what that meant, but I got scared. When everyone fell asleep, I climbed out the window and ran. Her voice dropped to a trembling whisper. They are never allowed to fail. If they don't find me, they'll be punished. Daniel looked toward the window, the black SUV still parked half a block away, watching, not leaving. Not blinking. Waiting for a mistake. He quickly grabbed his phone and tried calling the police again, this time explaining the danger, but the officer's tone was cautious, guarded. Sir, if this involves a wealthy or politically connected individual, we need evidence before we intervene. Evidence. That single word made Daniel's jaw clench. They were asking evidence from a terrified child who had escaped in the dark. He hung up, furious. That's when he saw it. A small red laser dot appear briefly on his living room curtain, then vanish. His heart dropped. He moved instantly. Both of you, get away from the window, he ordered sharply. Lila gasped and pulled Sophie with her into the hallway. Daniel's breathing turned heavy, not from fear, but from dawning certainty. This wasn't a rescue mission. This was a recovery operation, and if they were being watched already, then the real danger was seconds away from their door. The clock had barely struck dawn when the sound of gravel crunching outside jolted Daniel once more, but this time, the footsteps were slower, deliberate, not the militant stride of guards on a mission. Daniel peeked through the blinds cautiously, expecting those same cold men in suits, but instead, what he saw made his breath catch. A different man stepped out of the black SUV, no bodyguards, no arrogance, no sunglasses. Just a tall, exhausted-looking man in a gray overcoat, his posture slouched not with power, but with regret. He didn't march to the door. He walked, slowly. Like a man on the verge of falling apart. Daniel hesitated only a moment before answering the door, keeping the chain lock on. The man stood there, eyes raw and red from sleeplessness. He didn't look like a threat. He looked like a father who'd lost everything long before last night. "Mr. Hale," the man spoke softly, voice shaking. "Please. I know my men came here. I know they frightened you. I didn't send them to hurt anyone." Daniel's voice was calm but firm. "Step back and start explaining, or I close this door." The man closed his eyes, exhaled, and stepped back. "My name is Nathaniel Reed," he said quietly, a name Daniel instantly recognized. Billionaire industrialist. Unreachable. Untouchable. But the man standing here now looked nothing like a titan of power. "I lost my wife in a car accident last year," he continued. "The moment she died. I never slept again. Every day I thought, what if it had been Sophie? What if she was next? I became obsessed. Controlled everything. Locked everything down. I called it protection." His voice broke. "But I was destroying her instead." Daniel said nothing, but his grip on the door loosened. Nathaniel wiped his face. "When she ran away, I sent my men like always. But this time, she didn't just disappear from the house." He looked Daniel straight in the eyes. "She was running from me." At that moment, a tiny gasp escaped behind Daniel. Sophie had stepped into view. Nathaniel didn't rush toward her. He didn't even move, afraid one wrong step would make her run again. "Sophie," he whispered, voice cracking. "I'm sorry." And for the first time, Sophie didn't flinch at his voice, her eyes filled, but not with fear this time. With memory. Pain. Love. Loss. She walked forward slowly, then stopped halfway. Nathaniel dropped to his knees on Daniel's porch. "I won't force you anymore. If you want to stay here, I'll walk away right now." Tears spilled from Sophie's eyes. The stuffed bear fell from her hand as she finally ran, but into her father's arms. She buried her face into his coat as he wept like a man who'd finally awakened from a nightmare. Daniel stepped back, a quiet ache of understanding in his chest. Sophie turned and hugged him too before leaving, whispering, "Thank you, for being the kind of father every child deserves." As the black car drove away. This time with no shadows, no threat, the morning sun broke over Elmwood Street, and Daniel realized not all black cars came to take. Some came to return what was lost.